Hello, this is how to wire up and configure the 8400 Versa with our TMU-295 printer and the 910X. So first we're going to set up the printer. So you'll take your parallel to female 9-pin connector. You would actually cut off the end and strip the wires. So I have the other end here. And give yourself some space, because now we're going to test out which one is the transmit, which one is the ground. So this end, strip the wire, and we'll start testing. Okay, so I have a multimeter here, so we're actually going to test out for continuity. So this multimeter, this is the one. I have cut and stripped the ends, so now we're testing pin 3. If visible, you'll see pin here, pin 3. I cut a piece of solder because it's a female connector. The one for the TMU printer is a female connector. You put one end here, and you wait for a beep. Okay, so in my case, the green cable is my transmit. So that's what's going to be transmit for my 8400 Versa. So it's pin 3, so it's good. Just remember the green cable. And then now test for ground. So let's try pin 5. So all the way here. And it should be the black one. Okay, the black one is pin 5, which is ground. So that's how you will test for which pin out your transmit and which is your ground in your DB9 connector. So in my case, my red cable was my ground and my yellow cable was my transmit. Depending on what serial cable, because this is, remember, this is my parallel cable. I cut off the DB9 end. Different wiring, but you just have to remember which one's your transmit, which one's your ground. So keep that in mind. So we're actually gonna wire this into the back of the Versa and wire it into this. So you can see here's the back of my 8400 Versa. So what we're actually gonna do is remove the 4 screws, so 2 here, and you'll see I can't actually get to the bottom 2 screws, so you actually have to pop up to clip off. So now I'm able to get to these 2 screws in the bottom. You see the 2 screws on top, unscrew it, and you can see how I already ran my cable. I loosened this end, the cable from my printer inward, and I could actually open up the front now, and you'll notice this part. So load cell, that's for your scale, simulator, whatever your truck scale is going to be connected to, and your comms. We will connect our printer and our scoreboard. So this is the back side. You see the writing, GND's ground, DTR, RX, TX. That's for 1A, and then 1B we'll have TA, TB, and shield. So you'll realize, if you remember, that's what we do the readout in the beginning. My red cable, my printer, is my ground, and my yellow is my TX. So you'll wire the printer into 1A. So you could actually remove this piece, wiggle it out. You remember the top pin is my ground, and the 4th down it's my TX. So you're actually gonna get your mini flathead screwdriver, loosen up 1 and 4. You could always check the diagram here, 2, 3, 4. So my red cable, my situation is my ground. Wire all the way in. Okay, so my ground is in there. So now transmit, which is in my case my yellow. I'm gonna put that into slot 4. So this is important because we're gonna program 1A transmit to only transmit when I press the print button. You can swap it around, but what we're showing you is just when I put a single command for print, it's gonna print, and 1B we're setting it for continuous sending, which is gonna be for our scoreboard. So I'm gonna wire in. Okay, so now my printer is hooked up. So you can just put it back and you'll see how it'll line up. See ground and then my TX. So next we'll be working on the scoreboard. Here's my black cable for my scoreboard. I've plugged in over there, my 910X. So it was trial and error, but eventually I found out my black and white cables are the ground and transmit. In my case, the black transmit and my white, or black is ground, white is transmit. And now we're gonna hook it up to 1B. And specifically it's TB, the second one, the TA TB. So the second to last one, we're actually gonna wire it up. So you have to cut this wire, strip it, and wire it through the back of the 8400 Versa. And this is going to be for your scoreboard. So here's my wiring. So this is my ground, my red cable. So I'm actually going to combine my black and red cable to the same ground. And then I'm going to put my transmit from my scoreboard to TB, which is second to last port, because there's only one ground on this. So we're actually going to wire this up. So first, we're actually going to loosen up this ground. So you see how I combined them two together. So now I have my black and red cable to my ground. So now we'll tighten it down. So they're both in there, it's not coming out. In my case, my white cable is my transmit. So now I'm going to wire it to 1B, specifically TB. So that's transmit letter B. This could always be programmed differently, but I'll show you how to program it on this one. So it's second to last port. See, second to last port. Write it down. And put it in. So it's kind of a little more obvious when you see it here. See my two ground, my TX for 1A, and then my TB for 1B. So there's two serial ports. So this should be the wiring for this. So now I can able to just close the back. You don't have to wire anything or shut it, but you have it here. Now we're gonna program it. I'm making this a little bit easier because I'm using this cable from Intrum. So this one could configure the settings from a computer instead of do the menus. So I'm actually gonna plug this in. It doesn't stay on too well, but it should be, the holes line up. Take my USB, plug it in. Okay, you're on a computer, so we're actually gonna download the viewer to actually see what's on my 8400 Versa to my computer. So just go on winstrom.com and go to support, go to all downloads, and go into viewer. We're downloading the R400 viewer, so you click on R400 viewer and you will actually run this. So in my case, I have it downloaded and installed already. So now you can see the view, what it's going to look like. So it could actually now turn on my R400. You can see which version I have of the firmware. When it boots up, K404, that's truck in and out, so that's the correct firmware. So it shouldn't need any configuring. Next thing you do is, since you plugged it in, now you gotta find which COM port it is. So open up Device Manager, go to ports. You see I have port 5, but let's say I have more than 5. See how the ports now disappears. Plug it in. So now my COM port 5 appears. That just shows me that it was COM port 5 plugged in. So I click connect and open up the Rinstrom R400 viewer. Should be downloaded and installed. So for me it's COM 5. It's going to be an optimal link. Okay. And then now it should be matching what's on my Rinstrom. So this shows how computer is matching what's on my Rinstrom over here. So that just shows there's a link. So when this moves all through the USB to optimal link cable. So now this weight's going to keep fluctuating. So if we want to test out the print feature, it's best to now add a load cell simulator of some kind. Notice here, the left one, it says load cell on the bottom. So now you're going to wire in EX positive, which is your red cable, EX negative being your black cable, SIG positive being our green cable, and SIG negative being our white cable. So I already have it wired up. Connect to my weight pad. So now I could just easily plug in, so I could at least control the weight. So it's at least steadier. Okay, so now we're going to go to configuration settings. So you're going to click on your start session, and instead of save setup menu, we want the full setup menu, so you can see all the settings, and click OK. So now we can configure all the settings in our Rinstrom. So now we're in full set. A little bit closer look. So you click on this. These are just settings. So example, English, month, day, year. Okay, so one thing to check is h.where. So first you'll see it like this. So click on serial1.hw and make sure it's the correct baud rate 9600. That's our scoreboard, and our printer, the data, stop, all this is correct. Okay, so another scale thing. So click on scale, click on build. Make sure this matches what scale you're going to be using. Click on this, you can see how right now I'm set to 4 wire. Connecting to the 6 wire system, you click on 6 wire. This is very important because if you have a 6 wire set, which is default, and you try to connect to 4 wire, you will keep getting error saying how I'm not able to sense the SE and positive, SE and negative. Make sure to change this to 4 wire if you're going to be connected to a 4 wire system. So you see how it's set, and you can check the rest of these settings. Remember, this is for scale and build. Another error you might receive, which I did, click on func to eliminate the iLock error, which would be SF2. You'll see iLock type. So I got an iLock error because there's motion in the scale, so it was not able to print out or scoreboard. It will just go from motion, make that into none. Now eliminate that error, so now I'm able to print to the scoreboard and to the printer. Okay, so now we're actually going to configure the printer and the scoreboard. So click on SER-AUT. So first default, this is going to be set to 1. Since we're going to have 2 serial ports, make the num into 2. And then now we're going to go to auto. So first you put auto low. This is for the frequency that the printer, the scoreboard is going to be set to. So auto low. Set that to serial 1B. Because remember the wiring on the back. 1B. is our printer. Or no, it's a scoreboard. Listen up. Okay, so serial 1B is our scoreboard. So we're going to set that to serial 1B. FMT.F, that's the format of a string. It's possible to do a custom string, but in our situation with our 910X, you're actually able to just use the conduct FMT.F output string and just leave gross as is. So that's going to output to the screen. You saw previously how the scoreboard was displaying it. Just got to make sure correct string is displayed. If not, you just see dashes. So that sets up the first scoreboard. Now the second one, auto 2. Set this type to single. So we're setting this single because we press a single command and it's gonna do something. In this case, it's gonna click print and it's gonna send that command into your printer to print. And we're setting that to 1A. This is what we wired it in. If you wire it differently, you're gonna have to change that around, but in my case, just 1A. And in my case, I'm setting the output string, what's going to be on the printer, to fmt.a. So this takes a lot of trial and error and wiring around, but this is what I figured out works. So now I'll show you how it's going to look. Going back to display, you can see what's currently displayed. So you can see I have my weight pad here, my wrench drum's here, my printer's here, and a scoreboard. So it's actually matching the weight what's on my wrench drum. So just make sure you have your black cable connected, power is connected. You'll notice how my printer's here. Make sure you have the charging cable. And plug in your cable. Okay, so now you'll notice how when I put a weight on it, it might not be calibrated or not. You might see a difference. You'll see how it says 0 here. See it goes up. It's over there matching. That's good. So I currently have it set up. It's still plugged in. You can see currently it's fluctuating a little bit, but you can see how the F2 button is my print. So turn on your printer. So I'm actually going to put a paper in my printer. So I removed the plastic end that was inside the printer, so now it's loose. I have my paper actually inside my printer. So now if I actually try to print, it should send the command. See, I'm on my printer, powered on. So now I can release it. I have to remove it. And be able to see how be able to print out the date, the time, the number, and the current weight. And that weight will match what's on the scoreboard or what's on the screen. Just don't forget to plug in your load cell, plug in your printer, and plug in the scoreboard in the correct direction, but it should match what's on your computer. Or if not, you can always configure it within the settings. A little more difficult, but that is possible. So that should be it. Now when I click print, it sends command, and it would always send the command what the current weight is to the scoreboard. And make sure your 910X has a proper firmware.